everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hardly Working Through It, the show where we deep dive into things like life, love, and labor. Really go deeper than we do on Hardly Working. And apologies if this is taking a few days longer to get to you. But Kelly and I, who I haven't introduced yet, but we'll get into in a second, we've really been working through what to do with the election and what's going on and how to balance that out. And if we should talk about it, and it just felt inauthentic to not talk about it in our experience. But we wanted to preface it with this before we jump in. I know a lot of people listen and watch our shows because it's fun and it's an escape, and they want to keep some of the real world stuff out of it. And I think that's the beauty of what Hardly Working is, because that is and will remain just fun and enjoyable. As Kelly and I looked into what the next 4 years will hold, it felt like we couldn't continue Hardly Working Through It authentically talking about our lives and experiences, particularly the things that we're working through, while also ignoring politics and the election and Donald Trump becoming president. And we felt like it would be a disservice to us and to you, who maybe are going through certain similar things, to ignore it and act like that's not happening. But we also know that some people don't feel the same way that we do here politically. We know it's a really weird time over these last 10 years. It seems like if we disagree on one thing, we have to disagree on everything. That's not necessarily the case. But I can tell you that if talking about the reality of our lives, while including how politics and policies affect them, is that if that's going to be something that's troubling for you, then you may want to just skip this one. We got another show, Hardly Working, coming out in a couple days for you, but you're definitely going to want to skip this one if you feel like you might get triggered by it. But with that said, we're going to keep Hardly Working what it is, which is light and fun, and basically, just an escape from reality. Keep it the way it is, but I also know that for the next 4 years, if it's anything like Trump's first 4 years in office, we're going to have lots to talk about each and every week. And while it's not our desire to lower something to raise something else, we're not going to be just crapping on people and putting people down. At the same time, we'll be kind of expressing our real personal feelings and thoughts. So wanted to preface it that way. This may not be an episode for you, and Hardly Working Through It might not be in this season right for you. And if it's not, make that choice for yourself. But if it is, hey, welcome. And we're really going to be getting into the nitty gritty of it for the remaining Hardly Working Through It episodes we have. So with that said, welcome to Hardly Working Through It. If you're still here with us, I'm SP.
And I'm Kelly.
And you've done so good just sitting silently over there.
Yeah.
It was a big week for us. We happened to, much like the rest of the country, be watching the election results, but unlike the rest of the country, did it in a very unique and tricky manner and situation. Do you want to jump into it, or do you want me to dive into it?
I can jump into it.
Okay.
I think it's probably clear, because we already said it, that we weren't particularly happy with the election results. I am not a Republican, nor am I a Trumper.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here to offend anybody in that, but this is my truth and my show, and I can say my truth.
That's right. We already gave all the disclaimers.
Yeah.
If you're still here, that's on you.
I'm not a Trumper. And I do think that there is a big difference between a Republican and someone that votes for Trump.
Yeah.
I really, really do, personally. And we happen to be, I got hired to work a company party in like February.
Yeah, it was like 9 months ago.
February, and they were like, what are you doing November 5th? I was like, I'm free.
Didn't even cross
my mind that it was election day, because I was like, it's in November. Like, yeah, I'm available, and you're paying me a lot of money to be there and to fly me out. Yeah, I can come. Didn't know. There wasn't any information at the time that I booked it, other than like they knew they wanted photos in motion and they were going to fly. And we knew it was in Utah, and that was kind of it. And I was like, cool, our friends live out there. Maybe we'll go early. We'll hang with them, blah, 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 yada, yada. As we get closer, we start to talk about the fact that it's an election. It's on election day.
Yeah.
And then obviously 100-ish days before the election, Joe Biden steps down, Kamala Harris steps up. And so now it's an even bigger deal than it was. And then I come to find out that this party is All American Night.
And it happens to be for a company that makes aircrafts
Aircrafts
like
and
American-made pride.
Yeah. And we find out when we get there later on in the story that they have at their headquarters, they have an American flag and a Trump flag. Like those are the flags that they have.
We didn't find that out. This is the first I'm hearing of it.
I'm so sorry. Whatever her name is.
The girl, Rivets.
Yeah. You can do it.
She was dressed up in costume.
Yeah, it was a American theme. So come dressed as American. She dressed up as Rosie Rivets.
That's it, Rosie.
And it was very democratic and was kind of talking about it and was like, good always wins in the end. Kindness always wins in the end. Still waiting for that. But it was a tough night. It was a tough night. And I remember looking at you at the start of it. And I said to you, also, I'm a very emotional person. So just a heads up for that too. If you didn't know, you already know. I remember looking at you and saying, I haven't even considered until this moment right now that Kamala might not win.
Yeah.
And that was like a very big deal for me. And obviously she didn't win. And it was very hard. You have to do the night, to not be able to kind of watch the news, kind of see it from afar because they had it playing.
Yeah.
You see tons of red on the map anyway, because there's a bunch of smaller states. I don't have very, very many people that are going to be red, like the flyover states.
Yeah. I'd love to just paint a little picture here so you can get a little more of an idea of what the night was before we get into kind of what it meant to us. So we were at the Natural History Museum in Salt Lake. Yeah. Or in Utah. I think it was in Salt Lake.
It's in Salt Lake,
yeah.
But
Might
for those who
right
don't know where Salt
outside
Lake is, in Utah.
Yeah. Natural History Museum, working with a couple hundred people at basically a corporate party.
Yeah.
But like Kelly said, it's America themed. It's on election night. While most people weren't in political, I use the word propaganda, just meaning like stuff for their team or their
Kamala
side.
or
Most
Trump,
people weren't. But there was, a handful of mostly women actually who were in their Trump gear and their MAGA gear. And it was very weird because we were off in this really cool like alcove area, which was nice for us. And we had tons of people coming in, but we could also see they were playing CNN live. So we were getting live election results, which I was surprised they were playing CNN rather than just ABC or something. But they were doing that. And like Kelly said, all you could see was a bunch of red on the map, which I suppose if, that's your side, you're probably excited about it. But we just didn't know. It was so early on and polls were just closing that it looked bad, but you couldn't really tell because it was like, well, Trump's winning this county, but only 2% of the vote is in. So it's like you couldn't even really get a gauge. I was texting my mom. I was like, hey.
Keep me updated, yeah.
Yeah, it feels bad as I glance at the TV. Is it? And she's like, she gave me lots of updates, but she's like, it's not great right now. But that was kind of the situation we were in, which had a lot of people that clearly we'd found out later through the night. I'm going to use the word Trumpers. I hope that's not offensive. A lot of Trumpers coming into the booth, especially as the night progressed. And then we saw more and more of the MAGA hats coming out in the Go Trump Go. And it was weird to feel more and more isolated in that space where we're still providing a service and trying to entertain people. Not even entertain, but
our sole job is to make people smile in a booth, which means that we have to be upbeat and happy.
Yeah. Which we did. And
I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of us. Yeah, we did a good job.
Yeah. And to say this, I don't think it needs to be said, but it should be that way. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it can matter to you because of your things, but it shouldn't matter if blue or red wins an election or a House seat or a Senate seat. Like, it shouldn't matter, except that...
I mean, it should matter, but it shouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the thing that divides us, although it is the thing that divides us right now. And it shouldn't matter, but it matters because the person that we elected into a presidency is a 34-time convicted felon.
Yeah.
Who's also sexually assaulted multiple women.
Yep.
Who has helped to overthrow Roe versus Wade by putting his majority of judges into the Supreme Court.
Yep.
Who said COVID wasn't real.
Yep.
During his presidency. Who pulled us out of NATO the very first time he was in presidency.
Yep.
Who called for an insurrection.
Yep.
On January 6th. And then the list goes on and on.
You're just listing bad things. Can you list some of the good things too?
No.
So
he looks like a Cheeto, and I like Cheetos.
That's a good thing.
That's the only good thing. His wife came out and wrote a book about how abortion is sometimes right for some people.
Yeah. The whole book's not about that, but she did say that, and I thought it was weird timing considering the platform that he's running on. But even he's backtracked.
Whose daughter stepped out of this one, said, I'm not going to be part of this election. Deuces.
Yeah.
Who chose someone who said he was going to be a never Trumper as his vice president, and then came in hard and hot with all these things about deporting people when your wife
Is
literally
an immigrant?
yeah.
Yeah. Look, nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah.
Nothing really makes sense. You can't follow the rational logic thread because it will not lead you to where they've landed. Anyone, any of these people.
No. Yeah. All that to say, I was getting at the point of like, it shouldn't be something that affects you and that makes you sad and makes you cry.
Yeah.
But then again, we also shouldn't have a candidate in the race who has done all those things that I just previously mentioned beforehand, who's friends with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, it's
And,
weird that that's like the best option
Yeah.
for the highest position of power, arguably in the world.
Yeah. So I was sad. Needless to say, I put a smile on my face. I mean, election results weren't called by the time we were leaving, nor did we really see them.
By the time we made it back to the hotel,
they were
was already,
for sure.
I mean,
we knew.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was crying already.
To the point where you're like, you can turn it off.
Yeah, I didn't need to see it anymore.
Yeah. Rather than just describing the night for us, there's a lot that unfolded over the next few days in terms of how you were feeling. Not just, I can't believe she didn't win, but just fears that you had particularly as a woman. Do you want to get into any of that stuff?
I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm scared. And I think that is the only thing to say. Yeah. And I'm a white woman, so like I have some privilege, not much, but some. But I don't think if you are not a woman or if you are someone that like believes Trump can do no wrong, I don't understand how you can be there as a woman. But I also know that if you're not a woman, like you just can't necessarily understand. Like I know while you understand, I think it's also something that I think you're learning in this season with me. But like if no one has said and you've never heard it, like I truly have less rights than you.
Yeah.
Men have made a decision over what I can do with my body. And that's not something that's made for you or any other male out there. And while I understand that Trump didn't physically do that thing, he did set it up for that to happen.
Yeah.
And that's been a big part of his campaign. He's backtracked that a little bit now, which I understand. But I just don't understand how, when you look at the map, there's a ton of white women that voted for Trump. Like a ton. Mm-hmm. A ton. I am part of the minority. And I'm proud to be part of the minority that voted for Kamala when it comes to white people, white women specifically. But it is scary. Yeah. It is scary to think about. And I know that people are like, well, like you don't know. And like, we got, even Brooklyn said it in the car this morning, like we got through the last time, we'll get through this time. And I can't help being like, baby.
Yeah. It's sad that our 9-year-old even has to know about politics. And we keep her out of it mostly.
Yeah.
But for her from the backseat to be like, we'll get through it. I was like, yeah, we will. Keep up that attitude.
And she doesn't even know. Yeah. But as a woman, to have a president, soon to be president, who has said terrible comments about women.
Yeah. Bragged about assaulting them.
Bragged about assaulting them, has been a part of that. It's hard. And and I said this to you, I'd love to sit with anybody that voted for Trump and try to understand like what they believe, because I don't.
Yeah.
And we talk about this a lot. I think there's a right side of history and the wrong side of history. And I think if you voted for Trump, you're on the wrong side of history. And I will stand by that. And I fully believe that. I'm scared for the next 4 years. I'm scared for what it holds. I'm scared for what he's going to pull us out of. I'm scared for what the rest of the world will do. I mean, you've already heard things when people are meeting of like, are you going to increase tariffs? Are you going to make it harder? And like, it's kind of looking that way, everybody. Like, you think it's hard to live now? You think that voting for Trump because of the economic, and that's what I've also heard, is not everyone is technically a Trumper. Some people are one issue voters. A lot of Republicans are. I think you're dumb. I think you're an idiot. I think you voted for someone that it was the worst choice because you believe in you don't believe in abortion, don't want it to happen. Well, guess what? It's already something that's not happening. So like, you didn't need to vote for the devil. You could have voted for Kamala. You could have voted for anybody. I don't get that. What was I saying? Sorry, I got lost.
I mean, you were saying lots of stuff. It's a make or break issue for you.
Oh, there's that. People voted for him for economic reason. They think that he's going to be they're going to make better economics. It baffles my mind that people still don't understand that just because someone's in office you're not going to see the results like the next day. It takes time for things to happen. And so it baffles my mind. People are like, the economy was so good with Trump. I was like, yeah, because Obama put in some really great things into place that allowed us to have a good thing. What did Trump do? Not much. I just want you to know, except for say that COVID wasn't real. Like I said, pull us out of NATO.
In the Paris Climate
Accord. Like, what did he do?
Put kids in cages.
Put Republican Supreme Court justices into place.
He probably holds the record for the president that caused the most civil protests.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Nixon's probably up there in the 60s.
Said there was wrong on both sides after
the good people on both sides.
Was out in the Charlottesville.
Yeah, guys.
Pardoned people, didn't he?
It's going to be a long 4 years if not the last four, but his last 4 years in presidency is any indication.
And we had COVID to kind of help us with some of that. Where like certain things couldn't be done because people were literally dying and the world stopped caring about things the president was saying and started caring more about the people that were sick and in the hospitals and dying. It's very layered for me.
Even that caused distrust with organizations like the World Health Organization.
I know.
Like, can't trust them. It's classic manipulation. It's don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears, only believe me. That's what cults and religions do. That's what this particular politician, in my opinion, does. That's what his news outlets do. They just keep backing him and what he says over the
I don't
reality.
know that Fox does it anymore.
They still do.
Tucker Carlson is not a part of that anymore. Oh, you got to check in for a flight.
True. Sorry about that, guys. He's not a part of Tucker Carlson's not a part of it anymore, but that whole news machine is still just, keeping his stuff going.
Sure, I think they're fact checking more than they were before, specifically.
And the fact that fact checking is a problem is so troubling. It's not just political. It's like people don't believe in science and facts, and they don't believe in people who are experts in their field.
Yeah, no, they don't. They think they're crazy.
As one of my favorite online comedians says, like, you can't just get a degree from YouTube University and graduate magna scream loudly and think that you have the same knowledge and experience as like a scientist or an expert.
You don't.
You don't. And there's a reason why we have those scientists and we have those experts is because they put their life into researching this and figuring out the answers so that people like us don't have to. And I understand that people, well, they're probably not listening anymore if they've made it this far in. But I understand that people would be like, you're a sheep and you should do your own research. Like, just because my brain or your brain is not trained or intelligent enough to understand something doesn't mean that the experts are wrong. My brain truly doesn't understand how the earth is just floating and hurling through space and it's a circle and we don't fall off of it. I understand gravity is pulling us to the center, but like if I didn't trust experts, I could have been like, it makes sense that the world's flat. How far can I go? But that's because my stupid mind wouldn't understand astrophysics. And
for sure.
But no one of any intelligence thinks that the earth is flat because we have people with telescopes and degrees and experience to tell us, no, it's really round. Trust me. So we're just living in this age of distrust and misinformation. And I think no one's going to believe anything anymore, especially with AI and deep fakes and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not just there's going to be like an apathy rather than empathy. I was talking to my therapist about this. I suppose it was maybe 2 days after the election. Very grateful for my therapist. She's wonderful. What it kind of boiled down to for me, I got two things. I'll see if I can hit them. First, if you've listened to any of our shows for any length of time, you probably know that we live by this concept that truth finds you when you're ready, which essentially means you can hear something, even believe something, or not believe something until some time when it hits you in a way where you go, dang, I get it now. And I think that happened for me this week. I know it did with you. I'm a big supporter of women. I think men are typically the problem and women are typically the solution. And out of context, that might sound bad, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I've always been in support of, while I'm a man and I can only try to understand, like, it is your body and you shouldn't have a government that's controlling it. I also grew up in the church, so I have those religious beliefs or the thoughts in my head from before of like, the only thing that matters is saving babies. I no longer think that way because I don't think that that's really what's happening there anymore.
No.
Presented with new information, I no longer think that that's the reality. But for me, the truth that found me when I was ready for it was, even though I supported you and supported other women and all that, I was like, you should have bodily autonomy. It wasn't until you started describing it to me, like, there's a chance with everything that's coming up. They've said that to prohibit women from going to other states to get abortions, that women might have to check with the government or get permission from the government to travel in between states.
Or get screened at the airport.
Or
Why
get
are you
screened.
traveling? Yeah,
Exactly.
what are you doing?
And I was like, for you and me who fly and travel so much, I was like, what an unnecessary burden it would put onto you just because you're a woman who like might not even want to have a kid or like isn't going to be at risk of being pregnant anytime soon.
Or even if I wouldn't travel to another state to get an abortion.
Don't even have to.
Because we would be trying to have one. And also,
Yeah.
if I needed to, I live in a blue state where I can.
Right. But what I started to realize was like, oh, to leave your state, you might have to get permission or stopped at the airport. Like that, it would be such a big hindrance. And it clicked for me where I was like, dang, it's not just the abortion issue. It's an issue of controlling women.
Yeah.
So that was a big, I won't call it a realization, but it really kind of solidified for me. Truth found me when I was ready to hear it or when I heard it in the right way. The second thing is when I was talking to my therapist, I think what it boiled down to for me, and this is an oversimplification of everything because there's so many issues, and I definitely don't want to make it seem like I'm boiling it down to things that aren't even specific to your hurts. But for me, it was the realization that most people think of the two people who were running. There was one who was like, make America what it was. Let's go backwards to when it was great. And there was one who said, let's move forward and create something great. I think there's some accuracy to that. But when you boiled it down even further, what it came to is there was one candidate running on fear and hate and disunity and name calling and belittling and slander and making fun of and putting people down. And there was another candidate who was running on hope and inclusion and compassion and kindness and optimism. And the majority of the country chose the first option. And to live and kind of maneuver through a world that goes, dang, when given the choice between love, kindness, and compassion versus hate, venom, vitriol, bullying, the majority of people were like, we'll go with the hateful guy. I think that really reset my perspective a little bit to be like, dang, am I crazy? Do the majority of people would they really have a person who, like, if Donald Trump was acting like this in an old folks home, they'd call the family and be like, you can't keep him here. He's an absolute menace to everyone around him. Like, you couldn't keep him in a retirement home, but we gave him the keys to the kingdom. Rather than the woman who, I understand that a lot of people would argue that her version of unity and inclusion is not what they believe inclusion and unity should be. Rights for LGBTQIA people, for some reason, for certain people, is not compassionate or inclusive or freedom.
The Pope has now said that they cool.
Got to get with it. I respect a worldview and world religion that can change their thoughts. I think that's one of the few things, I apologize, it's kind of rude to say that, but one of the few things I appreciate about Mormonism is their doctrine of being able to have new revelation, which is very convenient because at first they were like, black people can't be Mormons or go to heaven or anything. And then at some point they're like, wow, that's very racist and bigoted. And I don't think we can continue like that. And they magically got new revelation. I don't care where you get your new revelation from, as long as you're not hurting children specifically and then not hurting other people. I don't really care what you do. But I can appreciate a worldview that can change. I think that's what it boils down to for me too. And then I'll turn it back over to you, Cal.
Oh, you're okay.
I've probably said it on the show, and I said it to my therapist too. I believe that one of the clearest indicators for intelligence is your ability to change your mind based on new evidence. And I think the opposite is true too. I think one of the biggest indications of stupidity and lack of intelligence is how far you're willing to dig your heels in and not change your belief or your perspective based on contrary new evidence, because it's more important to you to say, I've always felt this way, voted this way, believed this way for my whole life, and I've never changed, and I'm proud that I'm unwavering. I think that's one of the biggest marks of lack of critical thinking skills, lack of compassion and empathy, and lack of ability to have any type of conversation with any human, whether you're married to them, friends with them, in a family with them, to have a conversation with anybody like that has differing viewpoints, because you're so proud of digging your heels in and thinking that you have to be the world police too. This is one of the things that, the last thing I promise for now.
It's good.
One of the things that drives me nuts is, as I listed, like, one candidate is all of these, like, it proudly wears the flags of all of these hurtful, terrible things. And the other one wears all of the other flags of all the compassionate, caring things. And there's no arguing here. The vast majority of Christians chose the hatred guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, I drove in California, in Los Angeles, on the freeway today, a sign that said Trump equals peace. It's usually Jesus equals peace. But they have wrapped this man they've put him on a cross. They've wrapped Jesus in the flag, however you want to say it. Like, they have made this guy their mascot.
Who isn't even a
and he's
Christian
in direct
or believer.
opposition.
Yeah.
Who is not a Christian, won't tell you his favorite verse because it's too personal. Can you tell me any verse? No, it's very personal. I'll keep it to myself. Which, if you were a Christian, you know you're supposed to be out there making disciples of all nations and sharing the good news, because it's only you as the person between heaven and hell for somebody. For some reason, it feels like it should be God's job, but it's yours. Yeah. This dude does not have your values, does not care about you. He cares about himself, and that's it.
Well,
so
we're
it
going to
sucks
see
that
it over the next 4 years, starting in January.
Yeah,
so.
and well, I think I was talking to you about this in the car. I think what's tricky for people that voted for him as well is they think this is like the season of prosperity that they're about to come into. Their guy won. He can't get reelected unless unless they make some big changes. He can't run for a third term. So now he doesn't have to get votes from people. He's in the office. He can now go back on any promise that doesn't suit him. Doesn't matter. He can be whoever he wants to right now. Yeah. And I think that all of those single issue voters, the people who voted because their guy, Donald J. Trump, supports a national abortion ban, are going to be very disappointed. Hear me out, when that never happens, at least in his presidency. I would be shocked if that happens. I don't think he cares. I'm not saying it couldn't.
I don't think it will.
But I don't think he'll care. Like, I don't think he cares.
You watched, I think they had in 7 states, they had this on the ballot, and many of them, they got better. The abortion bans in state to state. They made them stronger to be like, no, like, abortion is legal. There's only a couple of states. When you say better,
it's tough to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, because they had, like, abortion never at all, abortion up to 6 weeks, other specific ones, and then totally legal. And in the majority of these states, it either stayed legal or one of the states went from like not at all to no, it's completely legal. And some of them went down, different ones. Yeah. You're watching the states come out to protect the rights that will not be protected.
Mm-hmm. Which is good. I mean, honestly, when you look at Europe, it's similar size to the U.S. And instead of having a bunch of states, which is who we are as the United States, they have a bunch of countries that are about the size of most of our states.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of, we all say like states' rights, and that's important. And libertarians want, less government. And I understand that's not a Democrat or Republican necessarily, but it makes sense to leave things to the state level because everyone's so different. Arkansas is so different than Colorado is so different than New York is so different than Hawaii is so different than Alaska. But
listen, everyone can just go live in Texas, and in Texas you can just be your own thing.
Well, truly, I don't know what's the point of being United States when we're clearly so divided. Mm-hmm. Like, who cares? You couldn't split the country up into two halves or anything, but I don't know. Let Trump be the president of Florida, and then or
in
Texas.
Texas. Yeah. And
We'll
then,
go from there.
yeah.
Anyway, is there anything you want to add? I know we talked about trying to keep it a little bit short today rather than belaboring the election stuff, but I feel like I've gotten to say my piece is that, my hurt and my sadness comes not only from the experience for women and minorities, not just those of which we're friends with and love, but all of those people, even if we don't know them. My heart goes out to them, and the fact that the majority of Americans chose bullying and hatred and mocking over compassion, and a smart, accomplished, pretty, charming, qualified woman blows me away.
I agree. I don't think I have much more to say, although I do have some things to say, but I'll say it is sad to see so much division now. This was a clear race. Like, you either wanted Kamala or you wanted Trump. Like, I was even talking to my mom about this. She was like, in past years, like, you wanted someone, but if they didn't get voted, you still trusted the person who came after.
Yeah, you're like, they can do it.
The greatest example I can give right now is I literally just, may he rest in peace, watched a clip of John McCain when he was running against Obama.
Yeah, this is a good.
And I was like, these are like actual politicians where maybe you didn't want Obama or maybe you didn't want McCain, but they refused to talk poorly about each other, so much so that even at one of his rallies when people were talking about Obama and calling him an Arab and doing all the stuff, he like took the mic away and was like,
that's not what we do here.
He's like, yeah, that's not true. He's a good man. He's a good, upstanding man. He's someone I'm happy to be running against. He'd make a great president too. Like, there was so much respect and so much kindness and so much, they were going to hold to the truth of like, we're not going to talk crap about the other person. We're not going to divide the American people. We're going to say, it may not be your preference, but that person is not a bad person, and they're going to run the United States well.
It also reminds me though that those type of lunatic people, like the person you're describing, who's like,
I've always been here.
Have always been here waiting for their mascot, and that's who they found. And unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of that moving forward.
Yeah. But the division has been hard, and so much so, I say this not just for me, but for anyone that's listening, it's maybe feeling the same way. But like, I even told you, I was like, it's hard to be out in public as a woman because I just don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
And as someone who is innately someone that likes to smile at people and likes to be like pleasant and polite and like, I don't try to have conversation with everybody I run into, but like, you do the thing, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll hope you have a great day or whatever. If you run into someone, it's been very difficult for me to be out in public, specifically in the areas that we happen to be out in public in because of where our daughter goes to school and different things like that. Like, I truly don't feel like I can trust anyone or be myself. I felt that towards other women, which is hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know who you voted for, and I don't trust you, and I'm hurting and in pain, and I don't need to see you rub it in my face or know that you were someone that is going to make the next 4 years a literal living hell.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been an interesting time for me, which I know you know, because I've had very emotional days where I've just stayed in my pajamas all day and baked and watched Gilmore Girls and just cried. Because
It's been a good season for cookies, though. I'll tell you that much.
But it's hard. I'm really scared.
Yeah.
I think I told you the other day, I said, I just want to know that you'll protect me.
Yeah.
And that's like a big thing that I'm feeling is like, will I be okay?
Mm-hmm.
Will the people around us be okay? And I will say this. I've seen a lot of this on social media, right? Everyone posting like going to the polls to cancel out such and such vote, or maybe they're not doing that. I feel very grateful that for me personally, I'm surrounded by people that all are like-minded and voted the same.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for that. Thank my dad and my mom, my brothers who reached out to me and cared about me during this time and were like, know me well enough to know that this would be tough.
Yeah. It's very sweet.
And I apologize to anybody that doesn't have that. It's already a tough season.
Yeah.
And then to not have that, it just makes it harder. And I know it.
But you get to be here with us, and you can have that from us if you don't get it from your friends, family, spouses, whatever.
But I know there's more to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about it as this continues to go. I'm trying to take in the last couple months that we have of Joe Biden. Here's to hoping he steps down and let Kamala be the 47th president of the United States, although I don't think that will happen. But it sucks.
Yeah.
And I know that people are excited. People that supported Trump are excited, and like you're totally allowed to be.
Yeah. And congratulations that your guy won. We're not claiming that it was unfair, rigged, or trying to overturn the results of a free and
I
fair
was gonna
election.
say,
But, you know,
yeah, take note of that. Take note that while you guys all got upset and yelled and screamed, and he called it rigged, and you guys stormed the Capitol, whether actually there or in like spirit, we put up Christmas trees and baked cookies and cried because we still believe in a democracy and we still believe that America will be America, and it's not dependent on Kamala Harris or whoever else would have been in that seat.
right.
It's dependent on all of us making a choice and saying, you know, we're going to still choose to be the America that we are. And here's to hoping that Trump is not the next Hitler who was also elected into office.
Yeah.
And we all know how that ended. So they called this the great experiment of democracy. Here's to hoping that we outlive the 47th president.
Yeah.
And that democracy doesn't end. But I'm confident with some of the people we have in the House and in the Senate that are representing us. I'm confident that there are still some Republicans out there who are true Republicans, not just Trumpers, who will fight for democracy and what's right.
Yeah.
And I hope that in 4 years, we're back here grateful that J.D. Vance isn't president.
Fingers crossed.
And that we actually have some real candidates that ran.
We'll see when we get there.
We're still here.
Yeah.
Until then, I'll just be scared.
To close it out to one of your points, as we wrap up, if you're feeling the way that we're feeling, and chances are if you've listened or watched this far, I don't think you would watch all 30 minutes of this if you weren't. So you probably are. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling lost, first, know that we're here with you. We're feeling it. We're reeling from it. And we're working through it. This might be the most truest version in season and series of Harley working through it that we'll do. We'll have to see. But what I want to leave you with is we all grew up hearing the idea that, you know, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you your future. Whoever you surround yourself with, that's your trajectory in life. Not only do I love and appreciate the people that we surround ourselves with, literally, I just want to put it out there for you. If you're feeling the way that we are, if you got nothing else, at least you can look and see who ideologically supports and believes what you do. And in a way, we're all in this together. We've got Oprah on our side. We've got Taylor Swift on our side, which I will give you as a big deal. We have what I think are some of the most influential and entertaining people in the world. I know you could argue that if they were the most influential, it wouldn't have happened this way. But some of the people that we aspire to be like and strive to be like, or we let entertain us, whether it is Taylor Swift or
Olivia Rodrigo or Sabrina Carpenter
or Stephen Colbert or Beyonce, like,
or Jimmy Kimmel or anybody.
Pretty much anybody who is anybody,
as well as Nobel Peace Prize winners.
Yeah, anyone who it mattered that if they endorse somebody, pretty much endorse Kamala, except for maybe Leonard Skinner. I have no idea.
And Zachary Levi.
That was a bummer for you.
Rest in peace, Flynn Rider. God.
Yeah, deuces. But hey, if you feel bummed out because of the situation we're all in.
Eminem too.
We got freaking Eminem.
I know.
He doesn't come out, but he literally came out in Detroit. He's like the freaking mayor of Detroit. And he's like, hey, the other guys want to take your voice away. And I don't think that's cool. In fact, I think that's so uncool that I'm going to come and tell you why you should vote for Kamala. In the end, it wasn't enough. But you know what? In the end of the Bad News Bears, they didn't win either. The end of Rocky, spoilers, he didn't win Rocky. We lost the battle this time. The war is still out there being fought, and we can do it with love and with kindness and with the people that we admire and look up to. And we can have some type of peace knowing who we're standing shoulder to shoulder with in amongst the ranks of. So with that, I think it's time to close out our election special. Hey, I love you, Cal.
I know.
And I'm sorry for the season that we're in and that we're going to be going through, but I promise I'll be here with you
Thanks, babe.
and we'll get through it together. And we promise that as long as we can keep juggling all of these balls and spinning all these plates at the same time, we'll be hanging with you too. I don't know if it'll make it 4 years. I don't know if we'll survive 4 years. I have no idea. But we love you. We'll definitely be getting real and authentic on this show, and we'll be keeping it fun on the other show, which will be coming out in just a few days. So if this was heavy, just know on Wednesday you got something good coming. But until then, I hope you find some peace and some joy. I hope that you realize that within the four walls of your room or your house, that you have some control there. And while we have very little control of anything else, you can control what you're doing in there, whether it's what you're watching, eating, consuming, drinking, exercising, where you're at mentally. If you're getting a good meditation going or prayer life going, you can control what's happening in your little area. And if you feel like everything else is out of control, start with your little space and see what you can control in ways that you can find happiness. Because I have to believe it's still true, even in the midst of more unprecedented times. The only person responsible for your happiness is you. And I hope you can find ways to take advantage of that, to find some joy for yourself this week. I love you. We love you guys. We'll see you in a few days. Hardly Working.